need to do me a favor because this is a special treat, at least for me. I know it will be for you. I need for you to tag and text and call. Let everybody know that this is one step closer to our journey of going raw vegan pretty soon. So let me start my microphone here, my record, so we can get started in the classroom. Okay, everybody, you know what to do. It is time to get in the moment and be ready to learn and grow together. And it's time to dance. Here we go. I hope you dance, John. Oh, there.
The Lillian Mcdermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be. I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian Mcdermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian Mcdermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning into the classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening and viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Well, as you know, back in 2013 or 2012, around that time, I was challenged to go raw vegan for 1 month in the radio show. I don't do radio anymore. Now we're internet based all over the world. But in 2012, 2013, that's when I was challenged. And I said, bring it. I can do anything for 1 month if it's legal and it doesn't harm my body. So it fit those two criteria. Well, I'm here to tell you that when you get started in this journey, whether you're trying to buy a juicer, start a garden, eat healthy, you're going to stumble upon this very special teacher today in the classroom, John Kohler. And I learned so much from him at the beginning of my journey that my raw vegan journey lasted 3 years, but I started introducing a little bit of more cooked foods with Dr. Joe Furman. And here we are today where we're at. And I am now challenging all of you to accept my challenge to go raw vegan. We're going to do this all together. I've got more information for you later on. But since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful, so grateful that John Kohler is here to do just that. Welcome to the classroom, John.
Thanks for having me today, Lillian. I'm glad to be here and share my knowledge with what I've learned through my personal health journey.
Yes, absolutely. Well, share a little bit about your background and your journey and what led you to even consider becoming raw vegan.
Sure, yeah, it is a long time ago. So I was literally just out of college, and what had happened was I got stricken with spinal meningitis, and I was hospitalized, and the doctor said that I might not make it out alive. So I mean, that shouldn't happen to you at any age, nonetheless, when I'm just out of college and quite young. And the doctor had no treatment for me, which was really scary because I'm like, this is not supposed to happen until I'm like 60 or something. Because I mean, I was a kid then, but now it doesn't even have to happen until you're like over 100 easily if you take care of yourself and eat right and all this kind of stuff. But anyways, aside from the point, anyways, I was at the potential end of my life. And, you know, as a child, I was like raised, you know, like with the belief, like the most important thing in life is money, and you want to make all this money and like dedicate your life to making money and go to college, get a good job, make all this money. And the thing was, luckily, I mean, the best thing that ever happened to me was that I almost lost my life after college, because when I almost lost my life, I was sitting in the hospital watching the stupid TV because I couldn't do anything else. They did a spinal tap. I was like in pain. And I was just hoping I was going to get better because the doctor had no treatment for me. And I'm like, wait a second. Even if I had $1 million in the bank right now, which I might have had like a couple thousand if I was lucky, like I couldn't write the check, Mr. Doctor, $1 million, do not cash unless John walks out of here. I mean, millionaires, billionaires, gazillionaires, for all I know, lose their lives every single day because they don't take responsibility for the thing most important in life, more important than all the money in the world in your bank account, which may be a lot or a little, don't matter. It's your health. So I want you guys have your health free and clear today. If you guys are listening to this, maybe you're a spirit listening to this, and that's amazing. But I want you guys to take care of your health. So anyways, that taught me the lesson when I was young, like, wow, all I want right now is my health because I'm about to lose it. And even all the money in the world couldn't get me out of this situation. And that's when I really decided that, like, John, if you get out of here, you need to figure out how to take care of yourself so that this does not happen to you again, because obviously, I'm not going to say the doctors failed me in this instance, because, the doctors know what they know. And hey, in some respects, they are great. I love the medical profession. I broke my arm. I went in there and they took care of me. But I think they get a failing grade in my book for like preventative medicine, because they're reaction based. They're not proactive. They're reactive. Oh, you got high blood pressure. Take this medication. You're going to have to be on for the rest of your life. And, I'm like, that's not where I want to go, right? Reaction is when I ended up in the hospital, they're like, you're not going to make it out alive again. And so I'm like, I'm done with this reactive stuff. I'm going to be proactive and figure out how I can turn my health around. And I'm not going to say it came easy because it was a journey. Probably it took me about the one thing I learned is you got to always ask yourself a better question, right? And that's how we learn and grow as people. Like, people just don't question things enough, unfortunately. So I was taught this, luckily, at a younger age, because I was in a gifted and talented program. But anyways, my question was to the doctor, like, why did I get sick in the first place when I was leaving? And the doctor said, well, you have what's called complement immune deficiency, which basically is blaming my disease on my defective genes that I had. And that he said, you are more susceptible to getting any kind of disease and losing your life next time than the average person. And he kind of like, if people remember like the 70s movie with John Travolta, The Boy in the Bubble. So that's the extreme instance, like no immune system, standard person. I'm like maybe somewhere in the middle or something, according to what, he said. And this wasn't too surprising because I had autoimmune type conditions as a child, asthma, allergies, eczema. All these things are kind of autoimmune conditions, maybe related because my mom did not breastfeed me and maybe not having the best, diet and microbiome influences when I was younger, but I don't know about that. That's hearsay. So anyways, all I knew is that I got out of there. I had a weak immune system and I needed to know, how do I turn this around as a recent college graduate with a business degree. I really didn't even take too many biology courses or none of the sciences and stuff, because that wasn't my forte. And then I just need to figure out like, how can I get better so that I could overcome my immune system compromises, challenges, genes, whatever it is. And, I learned things step by step. I got into juicing first because I saw Jay Kordich, the juice man, on an infomercial back in the mid 90s. And he said in his infomercial, the one thing that could build your immune system is like juicing. And he said that in his infomercial, and I got on the phone and ordered a juicer, and we didn't have Amazon Prime back then. He's like, the juicer's going to be there in 2 weeks. I'm like, what? 2 weeks? I need the juicer. Like, I need to start changing my health today. So I went to Walmart and bought a cheap juicer, and it basically started smoking because I was like using it like Jay did on the video, and it's just a garbage cheap one. And anyways, I got his and it worked great, and then I started making slow changes. So I started juicing twice a day, which is an excellent transition into eating more raw foods, because, juicing fresh fruits and vegetables are some of the best foods you could get in you, especially the vegetables specifically. I don't necessarily recommend juicing a whole lot of fruits unless you just need it for the sweetness, or unless, you're going to drink soda otherwise, because fruit juice is better than soda, but still not as good as leafy green vegetable juice that I have all behind me, or I have the vegetables behind me that I pick and juice. So then I got into juicing, and then I got into colon cleansing, and I did this colon cleanse. And for the first time in my life, my skin completely cleared up of all my skin conditions, like the
Wow.
eczema. And my pediatrician, as a child, like he would say, "Oh, you're gonna grow out of this as a teenager." So like every birthday, I would get excited, like, okay, I'm gonna be 13 this year. I'm gonna grow out of my skin condition because I'm a teenager now, and that just didn't happen. So so when I went on this cleanse and it finally cleared up my skin, I was totally amazed, and I was like, wow, this is the program I need to do for the rest of my life to stay healthy.
And that just opened the door because that's what happened to me. After 4 days of accepting the raw vegan challenge, I felt really good. But here was the deal. I didn't feel bad. I didn't know I could feel better. So some of us get used to feeling a certain way, and we don't know that we could feel better because we think that this is the way it is. And this is how I felt my whole life. And all of a sudden, things started changing for me. But what was your diet like? I mean, spinal meningitis, I mean, that's a major issue. But what did you eat before you started juicing? Did you eat the standard American diet? How was it for you?
Well, I ate a diet a little bit better than a standard American diet.
Yeah, and I thought so too. I thought I was too. Yeah.
I didn't drink alcohol. I quit alcohol at 21 after joining a fraternity, which was a whole fun story in itself. I was always a designated driver everybody wanted to hang out with. I stopped eating red meat, so I only ate chicken and fish sometimes. I read my ingredient labels like a good person and not having all these big complicated, words, BHA, BHT, and all these things I can't pronounce. But the fact of the matter is I wasn't eating enough fruits and vegetables. And I was eating way too many processed foods and pre-made foods and things out of restaurants and all this kind of garbage.
Sure. I hear you. I hear you. The same journey with me. I stopped eating meat, in my 20s because my stomach wouldn't digest it. And I get really sick. And I grew up in a family where my dad would buy half a cow and we would eat it in the weekends, T-bone steaks, and they would have to rush me to the emergency room because I couldn't digest it. And so I stopped eating red meat in my 20s, and I only ate fish and chicken or turkey. But then once I realized that I could feel so good eating this raw vegan diet in 4 days, I said, what else is out there? And so what started a radio show, allopathic, the latest trends, I am nothing like that woman that started the journey. I am totally different. I'm sure you are too. So you start juicing, then all of a sudden, what led you to let alone raw vegan? I mean, vegan, is like, you say vegan, back when I first started eating this way, it was like, oh. Now, I can imagine 26 years ago, it was probably even more like taboo to say something like that. And then to be raw vegan, how difficult was it for you to transition?
Well, luckily, I skipped the whole vegan route. So I'm actually kind of glad I did that because, there's so many vegan foods that are just processed and junk and just not healthy.
You're right.
So basically, there's a few things that keyed me off. Number one is in the Juicer, it came with 6 cassette tapes, so that dates me a little bit. But one of the cassette tapes, he says, the thing that prematurely ages you faster than anything else is cooked foods. Don't put cooked foods in your body. And when I first heard Jay say that, I was like, this guy's a whack job. Everybody that I know eats cooked foods, raw foods. That's really weird. But I'm going to do this juicing stuff because I feel good and it makes sense to me. And so that was the first thing. The second thing was in a book I bought called Cleanse and Purify Thyself by Dr. Richard Anderson. He talked about going on this colon cleanse and doing a bentonite, psyllium, herbs and like chlorophyll and water to clean out your colon. And he said that you should also go on raw food so that you don't toxify your body back up again after you do this cleanse. And because I got some amazing results on the cleanse, like my skin cleared up, which the doctors had never been able to do. I was like, I guess, and of course, in that book, he says it builds your immune system, something that I really needed. So between those two guys, and then also a few years prior, I was at actually a Thanksgiving meal in like Santa Rosa or Sebastopol, California. And with my girlfriend I was dating at the time, Lindsay, and we went to some of her families, and some of her distant family was at a potluck, and this whole one group of their family brought all this raw food stuff. Nothing was cooked. And I remember sitting next to the guy. The guy's name was Samson. And actually, I know Samson to this day. He's a great dude. That's Samson Geller. And, I talked to him. I'm like, I was really curious because I wasn't into it at that point. That's when I was kind of eating healthy. I was like, what are you guys eating? He's like, oh, we eat only raw because of this, this, and this. And I tried. I'm like, oh, this stuff tastes good. And it was like, okay, that's the weird people that eat the raw vegan stuff, but that's not me. But then later I'm like, wait a second, I met that guy. He did this. And then, anyways, after that, after I went on the Rise and Shine cleanse and came off, cleared up my skin, I'm like, this is what I have to do for the rest of my life if I want to live. So that's what I told myself. And I'm like, I pretty much been, well, maybe like within the last couple of years, I started including more heat processed foods. And I like to say heat processed versus cooked, because there's a big difference on how the food is processed and how it's heated, because you could create carcinogens in heat processed foods, and it could be really terrible. Some heat processed foods can be better than some raw foods that many raw foodists eat, in my opinion.
Like mushrooms, for example, right?
I'd agree.
Mushrooms.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a big fermentite. I helped Joel at his, new retreat center originally to help him with his garden.
It's beautiful.
And, I'm really into basically, so if you had to classify my diet, I would call myself a raw nutritarian is what I would call myself, because I incorporate some heat processed small amounts of beans and, especially like just to get some more greens in, and mushrooms, and other more nutrient dense foods. But majority of my raw foods career, like 25 years, I was like 99% raw with occasional slip up. But for the most part, I've been pretty much solid on there. So I kind of know how it feels, how to do it, how to be successful at it. And then I'm branching out and experimenting nowadays. And some raw foodists don't like that I'm going out of the box. But, I feel that it is improving my health by adding certain small amounts, less than 10% of my calories, approximately, depends though, of calories from some heat processed foods. And it's only done in an instant pot. I will only steam things so it keeps the temperature low and for the minimal amount of time. Because one of the things I did learn as a raw foodist is that how you process your food is super important to your overall health. Whether you're gonna, blend it, vacuum blend it, slow juice it, high speed juice it. And then also, more importantly, like I really got into the growing my own food, because it's not only how you process the food, but what food and what's the nutrients in the food you're starting with. I mean, if you live in South Florida and you're getting like, produce that's being shipped from California, that's like a week old in a truck, in a refrigerated truck, it's getting old and wilted, and you're paying super high prices. Right. And like the nutrients go down, plus the farmers are not adding the nutrients and minerals and microbes in the soil that they should be, in my personal opinion, to have high quality food. They're doing it just to get paid the money. Anyways, a lot of things I really get into the minutia to try to optimize what I'm doing, for me.
Wow. Did you think that when you started this journey, what a gift to have spinal meningitis, because you could be, that experience wouldn't have happened. You wouldn't have cleared your skin, understood about nutrition. And that I really believe that if we start at the beginning, like our children, giving them raw foods and explaining to them about nutrition, we wouldn't have the health crisis that we have today. I know we've been focusing for the last 2 years about this virus that's been going on, but we wouldn't have been fearful of that had our immune systems been optimal. And I think that that's what you are, out there promoting. And I want to tell you, thank you so much for all your videos that you do. So for those of you who have never heard of John Kohler because you haven't bought a juicer, or you haven't bought, he's someone that you will find everywhere on YouTube, and you will get information, and he'll give the pros and cons. And I thought that your message was very unbiased. I mean, I know that you have a preference for a particular juicer, but you would say, hey, these are the different benefits. And so you helped me tremendously when I was getting started in my journey. You mentioned a few people that became your teachers too. But what were some of the myths that you had to overcome? Because I know that as people are watching, and by the way, if you have a question for John, please type in a Q and write your question down. So that way I can, because some people make comments, I'll read the comments later, but when it comes to questions, make sure you type in Q. And John, I don't know if you have some extra time after the classroom, maybe 10, 15 minutes to maybe answer some of these questions.
Sure.
Do you? Perfect. Thank you. But, sometimes it's getting over the limiting beliefs that we have and embrace nutrition and health and all the wonderful things that we benefit from it, instead of saying, oh, raw vegan, that's weird, or a social outcast, or some of the things that we might experience as we go and we take a leap into that raw vegan world. What were some of the myths that you had to overcome for yourself that you would like to share with us so that people don't have to go through that themselves?
I mean, the easiest myth is you can't get enough protein from raw foods and any plant foods. You got to eat enough food. And more importantly, I really like to focus on the high protein plant foods, and if you think about it, like, okay, we're supposed to eat animals, and like when we're eating animals, we are really eating plants secondhand. So if you're eating fish, what plants you're eating? Well, you're probably, if you're eating at the bottom of the fish chain, because fish eat other fish as they get bigger, but basically you're eating algae and seaweeds, right? I eat algae and seaweeds. My goal is to eat algae and seaweeds, right? If you're eating cows or land animals, what are they eating? Well, if they're factory farmed, they're eating genetically modified corn and soy, which I don't recommend, and is not their natural diet. But in nature, they would, if I let a cow loose in my garden, he'd eat it all. And then I would not eat the cow. So I'm going to not have the cow in my garden, or a goat in my garden, even worse. I'm just going to eat the leaves and eat the greens in higher quantities, because the fact of the matter is that's where animals get their protein from, the plant foods, the greens especially. And most, even vegans, don't eat enough greens. Now, the other thing you said, Lillian, that I really want to kind of comment on is I really don't even like labels. So I don't even want anybody to say I'm a raw vegan. I want them to say I eat a large percentage of fresh fruits and fresh vegetables, because that's more important than some raw vegan label that you got to keep the temperature below 118 degrees.
Absolutely.
Which I'm not so
absolutely. And I would like to add, that's what I loved about Joel. I mean, he's been a teacher in the classroom since 2015. He's been on every month, and because of we're now doing every other month, because he's been on for quite a long time. And I hate the labels. I hated the labels. So I agree with you 100%. Nutritarian, focus on nutrients. And where are we getting our nutrients? Fruits and vegetables. So keep going.
Yeah, and I try to be impartial, like, in my juicer reviews, because I sell juicers. So I don't know, people might say you're biased because you sell juicers, but to me, I want to concentrate these valuable plant nutrients or phytonutrients, and juicing is an excellent way to do that for me personally, because now you could reduce the volume. And yes, juicing does remove some, but not all the fiber. Juicing removes the insoluble fiber, and the soluble fiber, which is soluble, stays in the liquid. So if I make like a cactus fruit juice, it's super thick. If I juice like quince, tejocote, which is like these little Mexican hawthorns, and apples, and the juice was so thick it barely even worked, because it was, and then it just totally like gelled up in the fridge, like it was just solid. Papaya will do the same thing. Anyways, but when you extract the juice and liberate it from some of the fiber, so for example, if I juice celery in the best way possible, I'll get like a 90% or 92% overall weight is juice, and only like 10 or 8% is the leftover pulp. So you're still getting the overwhelming majority of the nutrients in the food. Plus, as Dr. Furman says, that when it's in its juice form, it goes in and is absorbed into your bloodstream, digested more easily, especially if you have some challenges with your digestive system. So that's why I really love the juicing. It allows you to bring your levels of nutrients up a lot faster than you could just by eating the food, especially when people don't chew their food well enough. I'm a big fan of chewing. You'll see me, I'll be the last one to usually eat at a vegan potluck or whatever, because I'm chewing each mouthful into like a mush. And so I could get, the best digestion, because all these little, I've incorporated all these little things over time just into my program and how I live my life personally.
Very good. So I want to address that point again of the labels. I think it's sad that as healthy as you eat, you would get any slack from any community if you choose to heat your food. And so when you say heat your food, are you talking about less than 110 degrees? Is that what you set your Instapot on? How do you do that?
No, so the Instant Pot heats above the raw food temperature. So approved, if there are approved raw food heating devices, would maybe be like a dehydrator that you could set below 118. If you have an Excalibur, you got to set it at 105 because that has a temperature fluctuation of like plus 10 or minus 10 even. You could maybe use a sous vide cooker so you could set it below the temperature, but then just, I've tried that, like warming something up like zucchini for like 10 hours at 118. It just doesn't, the texture really doesn't get any softer. You could, one of the things I can't really talk about due to a lawsuit, but you could do freeze drying because that also will keep it technically under the temperature to process your food. But then once you start, you could put things on a stove and then like put on the lowest setting and stick your finger in there and make sure it's not too hot, or get an infrared thermometer. So it's like you're just warming it. One of the worst ways to heat food up, if you want to do it on raw foods, which some people advocate, is in a Vitamix and letting the blender run for like 2 minutes and getting it warm, because now you're warming through friction and oxidation, which is like totally the worst thing you could do.
So you don't recommend making soups through the Vitamix?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the best practice, and I do the best practices, and this is what you're going to hear from me because nobody else really gets in the equipment. Actually, in a couple of days, I'm going to the biggest trade show in the country for like kitchen equipment, actually, because I like to keep up to date. But the best way to make a soup is if you want to vacuum blend it first and then heat it up just enough on the stove. Or actually, I would probably heat it in an Instant Pot, or on the stove. Yeah.
I saw a video that you just recently did on golden milk, which was the turmeric and all that. And I saw that. I'm like, oh no, not another tool, not another thing I need to buy. Is that new?
What, the vacuum
blender? Vacuum blender. The nut
milk bag. Oh, that's been out, Lillian, for like, I've been using, my first video was when I learned about it at the trade show in, was it like 97? No, not 97. No, maybe like.
Could be 97.
No, it wasn't 97. I started in 95. It was like, I don't know, it was a number of years ago. It was, 17. It was 17. So it's been like 5 years since I learned about it. When I first went to the trade show, as a company in Japan, that Testcom that was bringing them into the US didn't have a distributor yet. And I didn't understand the concept. And then when I understood it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to do this yesterday. I've been blending wrong for 20 years now. And then I was like, the first video I made on vacuum blending was actually how to convert a NutriBullet into a vacuum blender by buying a $20 kit so that I could vacuum blend myself before the equipment was even available in the United States. And I could share with others how to do this if they want to. And vacuum blenders, unfortunately, have not been quick to catch on. Most people don't understand the difference or realize how big of a difference it can make in anything they blend up by adding in lots of oxygen. I mean, the best way to, if I was like at Costco, and you know how they hand out free samples at Costco. If I was at Costco and had a vacuum blender versus standard blender, just had people come over, try this vacuum blender, try this non-vacuum blended, people would instantly, wow, this one tastes more flavorful, has more color. I get less gas and bloating because I'm not swallowing all this extra air. When you blend in a Vitamix, you start off at this level, and when you're done blending, it's higher up because you're adding a lot of oxygen. I just got a really cool tool. It's a dissolved oxygen meter. So I'm going to be able to test the dissolved oxygen in like a standard blender and a vacuum blender. Plus, there's also scientific studies in published journals now that show the retention of nutrients over time if you vacuum blend versus not. And also right after you vacuum blend, like you could lose up to 2 to 3 times of certain polyphenol and antioxidant sensitive vitamins. So like literally every time you blend your blueberries, you're losing 3 times more phytonutrients than you need to. And if you're into a nutritarian diet, right, I would implore everybody to, and you blend a lot, get a vacuum blender because you're going to up your nutrition by just changing the appliance you use.
Well, let me ask you something. Okay, so how does it compare to is it a power blender as well? Are you able to heat up? Or you said it doesn't heat up, it just,
It heats up if you run it long enough, but I do not recommend heating things up in your blender.
okay, period.
Period.
Okay.
Never run the blender longer than needed, especially if you don't have vacuum. But even if you have vacuum, I like to, because what the vacuum blender does, Lillian, all it is, it's just so like I have an attachment you could buy for a Vitamix so you could vacuum blend in it, right? It's just the container and the special container.
It's like the wine when you suck. I saw it was like the like a little pump.
It sucks out the air, the excess oxygen out of the container before you blend. So now you're blending in a reduced oxygen environment, so that when you're basically breaking open cell walls, you're not bombarding and mixing in oxygen. If you ever look at like your blender, how's it going? You got a funnel cone like a tornado in the middle of the blender the whole time you're running it, and that's bringing in oxygen and mixing it into your mixture, oxidizing things. So with the vacuum blender,
it's so funny.
This is like, I'm not going to say eliminated, but drastically reduced.
Well, it's funny because you would say, I've been doing it wrong for 20 years, but you're healthy. How much damage has it caused you not to vacuum it?
No, I would agree. I've still done better than everybody on the planet. But
exactly.
Like,
let's give yourself.
I learn about a better way. I'm like, I want to do it because, like, why not? I'm worth it. And I mean, that's why I grow my food. Like, when I first met some friends that grew their own food, they're like, John, you got to grow your own food, man. It makes such a difference. I'm like, I'll just buy food. I go to the farmer's market. I buy it fresh from the farmer. He picks it that morning. And then the guy, Don Weaver, let me try some of his food that he grew with the rock dust and, using some of the soil techniques. I'm like, oh my gosh, this tastes way better. And then at that point, like, well, guess I now got to be a gardener because I'm on this health kick.
Who would have known? Who would have known what a gift that spinal meningitis was for you? I know as a certified life coach, that's what I do. As I help people see the beauty and the brokenness of our life. And you said it really well. And there is an Indian proverb. Sometimes I read it. It says Chinese proverb, Indian proverb. Everybody wants to take credit for this, but it's not me saying it. But I mean, I'm saying it, but it's not my quote. That a healthy man or a healthy person has 1,000 dreams, but a sick one has only one. And you live that. And I know that sometimes it requires us to have a healing crisis, some form of a crisis in our life to wake up, because if things are going really, really, really well in our life, sometimes we just go, what's the point in changing and growing? And for me, when I accepted that raw vegan challenge, I didn't realize what the outcome. I was like totally surprised that something like that would make a big difference. And when I felt so good, I thought, well, if they lied to me about food, what else is out there? And boy, did I go down that red pill hole. So it's just one of those things that we get to choose for ourselves. And I want to take a little break here. I want to remind you that if you have any questions for John, type in a Q, write the question, and we'll ask them at the end of the class today. And so I just want to encourage you to go to whenyounneedafriend.com, because this is where we take 100% responsibility for our life. My registered service mark is you could take a pill or you could take responsibility. It's not that I am against the pill, is that I am for doing whatever we need to do to live the life that we want, to not need the pill. And so I want to encourage you that while you're there at whenyounneedafriend.com, please subscribe. And once a week, you get a blog from us. The audio of the podcast is sent to you also, if you want, to your email. So you can listen or watch at any time at your convenience. Like and follow us on all social media, including BitChute and Odyssey, which we're trying to grow because we're being censored. Check out my sponsors because they are, supporting us. And so please support our sponsors the way that they're supporting the classroom. And last but not least, you can go to my Shop Now bag, just like John has a little Shop Now bag. You can go to my Shop Now bag and check out some of the things that we're doing, spirit, mind, and body, whether it's organic, 100% organic and non-chemicals, non-synthetic beauty products from head to toe. There's so many different things that we're doing to ourselves that we don't even know that is causing us harm. So let's reduce the toxic overload in our body so that we don't need the pills that cause more toxicity in our body. So with that in mind, there's another way that you can help out grow the classroom is that you can become an enrolled student. So whether it is a dollar, $1,000 a month, whatever, time, talent, or treasure, help us grow. We appreciate anything that you can do. And today we have John Kohler, who was very instrumental in my life. He's just finding out about this today because I never had the opportunity to say thank you to him when I first started in my journey back in 2012. And so here we are in 2022. This is surreal for me that the same person that helped me pick my juicers and pick my stuff in my kitchen is right here in the classroom. So this is very special that you guys get to meet him as well. And so, John, how can people tune into you? Because I know that OK Raw is one of your brands, and you can find youokraw.com on YouTube. How can people find you?
Yeah, so I mainly have 3 main YouTube channels that I put out basically 1 video a week that I've been doing for over 10 years now. So I have over 3,000 videos online, teaching all the stuff that I know. Cause I mean, I really am kind of making the videos because one day when I have kids, I want my kids to watch my videos so that they knew everything their dad knows. So they don't have to go through the school of hard knocks. Anyways, and also for the people, because also when I was in the hospital, almost lost my life, I made a promise, and I'm only here because of higher powers. And my kind of like what I said was like, if I have a reason to live, if I'm here, I'm gonna help my fellow man and do good and live in service on the planet. Because what else do we have? I mean, my goal isn't to like make all the millions of dollars, because I learned millions of dollars is not going to save your health. I had to learn how to save my health, and then more importantly, share this information with the world for free. And I will never charge for any of my information. Like some friends I have, they got to like sell their program and all this stuff. Like, you could just watch me. It's OK Raw on YouTube. That's for my raw foods and lifestyle videos. Growing Your Greens, which is where I teach all the gardening. I'm really passionate about gardening more days than the other things. I have over 1,600 videos on the gardening and growing high quality, fruits, vegetables, and herbs. And then I also have another channel on YouTube just simply called Raw Foods, or that's my Discount Juicers channel, where I test all the different juicers and blenders and different appliances that allow you to eat more fresh fruits and fresh vegetables and process them in the best way possible so that you can get the exact machine for you. And like you said earlier, Lillian, like I try to be impartial. And I mean, here's the thing, every juicer has its pros and cons.
Correct.
And like, I really dislike people in online that say, buy this juicer, it's the best. Like, okay, it's the best for what? Like, this one's the best for yield. This one's the best for nutrients. This is the best for greens, but hey, this one's better for fruit. And like, you can't just put somebody in a box. Like, I don't know, what do you want to do in a juicer? Then I'll tell you what's the best for you. And
Right.
You could watch my videos and see, because I show it. I don't just tell you guys, I prove it by weighing out the exact produce in each one and then putting in each one and showing you guys results and giving you guys my commentary. So anyways, I just have fun with that. And then my e-commerce website is discountjuicers.com, which is where I sell the equipment. I would encourage people to check out the videos on the vacuum blending. I have a lot of those because that's something everybody could do. It's a game changer. And actually, the best juicer I'm going to tell you guys is not even a juicer anymore. It's a vacuum blender with a nut milk bag, because now you could not minimally oxidize the produce and grind it up into the smallest particle size and extract the most juice using that technique. Now, not everything can be juiced that way, but I have a lot of videos showing what you can juice that way to get the best juice and the best quality. That's how big of a fan I am on vacuum blenders.
Well, interesting. Just about a year ago, my husband and I purchased a Norwalk juicer. What do you think about those?
Well, did you get it new or used?
Used. You kidding me?
Well, because they just went out of business because of the pandemic and probably other reasons.
No way.
Yeah. So like you might have issues getting parts and stuff for it. And if you did buy it new, there wouldn't be a warranty anymore probably, but I mean, here's the thing. Every juice has its pros and cons, Lillian. I'm gonna tell you this. For banana ice cream and frozen fruit sorbets, it's the best. Hands down. That's what I use. I have a pure juicer, which is basically the improved Norwalk, because it's so easy to clean. You put the bananas through there, frozen fruit, and boom.
I saw that video.
Really quick and easy to clean. And then, so I'd say that. Then I would say that it'll get the highest yield pretty much across the board for the most part, which is good. But the thing I say that's a negative, there's two negatives about the Norwalk or even a two-stage hydraulic press juicer. Number one is the grinding. The grinding is pretty efficient at grinding a small particle size, but it does it at a higher RPM and it introduces a bit more oxygen into the mix than I would personally like, right?
Mhm.
So that's a negative. Then the next negative is when you press it out, the issue is the cloth. I have an issue with the press cloth because you can't really see through the press cloth, right?
Mhm.
And when you extract the juice is more clear and does not contain as many phytonutrients, in my personal opinion, based on my taste sensors. Because the juice is more like water. So if I juice in that juicer compared to a different juicer that grinds it, that has holes in the juicing screen that lets a bit more particulate through, the juice tastes more rich, is more deep. And but then at the same time, like I've also juiced cabbage in the slow juicer, and then I put the pulp in the press, and then the press pulp is like more fiery. So I got more isothiocyanates because now the process of pressing and putting whatever tons of pressure on it basically blows open more cell walls and extracts more enzymatic activity. And as proven by science or studies on it, the Norwalk style and the two-stage style will get more enzymatic activity in juice. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing depends if you want it, because enzymes break down nutrients but can convert them into different nutrients. So it could be a pro and a con. So I mean, it's a good juicer to have in your repertoire. I mean, how many juices do I have? Like 20 juices.
I know.
I
was gonna say I started off with a bunch of them that kept blowing up every month. I would
the
blow up
Norwalk
my
won't
juice.
really blow up, but hopefully hopefully it doesn't break. So there are repair people, and then maybe you could still be able to get parts in the future. But
Well, I tell you what, I had an Omega masticating juicer for a long time, but it kept the pulp was wet. So what are some of the, we'll have this conversation off the air, but what are some of the kitchen tools, as someone who's going to start becoming embracing this lifestyle, maybe for their month challenge, what are some of the tools that you recommend they get for the kitchen?
I mean, number one tool for me is like a vacuum blender and then a slow juicer. If they want to be raw vegan, I mean, and then I would get a food processor. If they just want to eat healthier, I would say get an Instant Pot. That's not raw vegan because now you're heating food up higher than it should be. But anyway, you could get more vegetables in you, I think, especially leafy green vegetables, which are the most under-eaten food. It's probably the most important thing. And then of course, just standard stuff like a huge bowl. I go to so many friends' houses and they have these small bowls. I'm like, wait, I want to eat a salad. They give me like, dude, no, I need a big bowl for a big salad. I got to mix and toss it up and it falls over the edges. And it's just like, oh, I can't even eat enough food here. Good cutting knife.
Well, that's a myth. That's a myth. That's a myth because there's a lot of people that think that if you're raw vegan, they compare their sizes that they would eat with meat and all these cooked foods. They look at their that portion and compare it to a raw vegan or a salad. I mean, my portions are pretty big. And so if I'm going to eat something that's that small, I'm going to be hungry all the time. And that's what the myth is, that people that eat raw vegan are hungry all the time. What would you say to that? They're not eating enough.
I mean, if you're not eating enough, then you might be hungry all the not getting your caloric needs met, number one, but number two, more importantly, your nutritional needs met as well. There's a lot of people that are into raw vegans, and I think a lot of, the dominant raw vegan lifestyle on YouTube, unfortunately, is like a more fruit-based raw vegan lifestyle, which, it could be healthy if it's done appropriately, but I think I see far too many people on a high fruit diet just totally fail miserably because they forget about the vegetables. So actually, one of the things that I do that's a bit different than most people into raw foods is I strive to eat a vegetable-dominated raw foods diet where I'm getting majority of my calories, over 51%, from vegetables, not fruits. So that's a very big distinction. But I'm not going to say it's easy to do that, because to eat that many vegetables, because vegetables don't have a lot of calories, I do a lot of juicing, so I can literally concentrate the calories in a juice and get those into me. I do like usually two vegetable juices a day, and then I'll do a big salad and then a little meal of fruit or some fruit as well to kind of meet all my caloric needs if I'm being completely raw that day. Actually, last week I was actually at the Ann Wigmore Institute in Puerto
Oh,
Rico. So I was all raw that week.
in Puerto Rico, there's an Ann Wigmore. I was
Yeah.
just at Hippocrates. I just drove there on Friday.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, actually I made a video with them. It's actually the original Ann Wigmore is the one in Puerto Rico, because they split up. She was in Boston and then they went to Puerto Rico and then Florida, but Ann's original teachings are still taught in Puerto Rico, more
Really?
like her traditional teachings, whereas, you know, Brian down in Hippocrates is doing a great job too, but he's kind of modified it and took it a little, you know, modified from the original Ann Wigmore approach.
I did not know that. I just saw Brian and Anna Maria were just in the classroom. I think it was last week last week or no, 2 weeks ago. And then Friday, I drove down there. I love their campus in Florida. I can't imagine what it is in Puerto Rico.
Well, the campus in Florida, Brian's campus is completely amazing. It's a little bit more, you know, well, let's put it this way. Ann Wigmore Institute is about 3 times less money than going to see Brian.
Really?
But it's on the beach. But y'all have a video. I have videos already showing the Ann Wigmore.
Now another reason to go to Puerto Rico. There we go. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'll have to check them out. Okay, so because we've got 10 minutes before we finish our podcast, but and then we'll do if you have any questions, make sure you type in a queue, write your questions down. But what are some tips that you've learned through your 26 years that you've been doing this, that you would impose on us, what you would share with us, that are for social situations? Because I know that I had to take my food everywhere because there was like, oh, well, there's nothing here to eat. And nobody cares to even think, how do I make something like this? That's why after 3 years, I said, you know what, I'm just going to add a little bit more and do a little bit more nutrients as opposed to focus on a name, raw vegan, which scares everybody half to death. And so what are some of your tips for socializing when you are raw vegan?
Sure. So, I mean, the main thing is, for the most part, when I go to family outings and events, I'd always bring like food for me, but also to share with everybody.
Correct.
So I'd bring even
Everyone
a
wants to try
huge
it.
salad in a big bowl. Like, look, I brought this salad to share with everybody. And of course, that's the only thing that I'm eating. So that's the number one tip. I mean, even when I go out to restaurants, you know, sometimes I'd have like some stuff packed in my backpack to pull out and like just ask for an empty plate and put it on there. The other tips I'll use is like, I will eat before I go out to social events, you know, so I'll preload with like, you know, juices or, you know, fruits or salads before I even go to the event. So then when I go to the event, I could just order like a little small salad and kind of just to fit in, even though that's not where I'm getting my nutrients from. Because don't expect to go to a standard restaurant and get like good nutrition from it. You know, I mean, my favorite places to go would be like a Mexican place, because I could get like a salad with guacamole and some pico de gallo, which is super simple. I mean, you could always like trying to like the thing is like I don't try to go out and eat out a lot. And so one of the goals for me personally, especially, is to try to like not make dates, like whether you're dating as a single guy or just events with others, don't make it around food, make it around something else. Because it's so sad that I think the default thing to do when you get together is go out to eat. Well, can't you go out for a walk, go out for, you know, go to the miniature golf course together, go to a park? I mean, there's so many other, go bowling, so many other things, go hiking in the mountains, go to a park.
Right.
I mean,
you're right.
there's so many other, we want to try to like focus beyond just the food. And yeah, maybe, you know, I'd rather go for a picnic because then I could bring my own food, have some nice time in nature with the people I want to hang out with, versus having to go to a restaurant and then being basically dictated to what you're going to eat. And actually, I think, you know, like chefs are the worst for your health, because like the majority of all the chefs out there don't create food that's going to serve your body and give you nutrition. It's just there to tantalize your taste buds and get you to eat more.
Yeah. And that's why they spend billions of dollars in the food industry to hook us with those taste buds. You know, that's what they do. Now, I want to go back because I had asked you for some tools, because this is really important. And this was important for me too. I had to get a really, really sharp knife. It is very, very difficult to be raw vegan if you don't have a sharp knife. What do you say about that? What would be a good knife to
I
get?
completely agree. And I've researched, I mean, I go to the trade show that has all the knives and all this stuff, and there's steel knives and all these knives. But you know what? Here's the thing. I'm not a knife guy. And if you're a knife guy, like to sharpen your knives with a stone and all that crazy stuff. And I don't do none of that stuff. I'm not a knife guy. But if you are, hey, more power to you. You guys know the good knives. But if you're just a standard guy like me that doesn't like sharpening knives, don't want to deal with it, but you just want a sharp knife to use every single time, you want to get the Kyocera micro serrated tomato knife. And watch out, don't cut your fingers off with it. Basically, it has like a sharp tooth, so it's like sawtooth, micro serrated. It's ceramic, so that ceramic, if you're just using it, don't use it on like things that have bones and all this stuff. Any fruits and vegetables, it'll cut the heck out of. Watch it on like really hard root vegetables. If you cut through hard root vegetables, go straight through. Don't ever tweak the knife, because the ceramic knife is super sharp. Ceramic is sharper than steel. It also doesn't have the like potential nickel contamination with the inexpensive stainless steel that could basically come off. Like it could be toxic actually. So I use ceramic because you got to sharpen a steel knife with a ceramic sharpener. The only thing you can sharpen a ceramic knife is a diamond sharpener. But the ceramic, I usually break my micro serrated Kyocera ceramic knife before I have to sharpen it, because like if you ding it a little bit, it'll chip and it's really fragile. So I'm not going to say if you're like a Butterfingers and stuff, probably not the knife for you. But if you want the sharpest knife, least hassle, and then very important, don't use it like my ex-girlfriend used it on the marble countertops in our rental apartment. She left slits in the marble because it's gonna like cut your marble up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so like luckily the power was out when they did the walkthrough for the realtor. So he didn't see it. But so don't be like her. So but the thing is, only cut on a wooden or bamboo or plastic cutting board. Don't cut on glass. Don't cut on other things, because you could damage the knife and or your material. Don't cut on your countertop either, because you're gonna damage it with a ceramic knife, because it is that sharp. It'll cut your marble.
You want to be careful. That is. And there are gloves, because I love the mandolin. I love every time my husband would use the mandolin, he would always get cut. So now we have this glove, because he's not getting out of doing work. Now he does a lot more. He is completely into the lifestyle. And so now he's making the salads, and he hasn't cut himself in a long time. But don't, guys or women, if you don't like to be in the kitchen, don't cut yourself just to get out. Some people they hurt themselves, like, oh, I hurt myself being raw vegan because I cut myself in the kitchen. So be very, very careful. These knives are very sharp, and you do want to have a very, very sharp knife when you decide to do this, and good peelers and good things. We've got 5 minutes left, and I really do want to ask you the question about organic. Oh no, we got 2 minutes left. Okay, organic versus conventional. How important is that to you?
For me, it's very important. I've made videos on this topic on my OK Raw channel. So I eat 90 to 95% organic, but I think you could be overly too organic to a fault, and then it could actually limit and hurt your lifestyle and your diet, because you're limiting. So it's quite unfortunate that not every fruit and vegetable in the world is grown organically and is available to purchase, right? Some things are organic, and sometimes it's really good when it's organic, like all my greens, all my berries, always organic, or I'm not going to buy it. Some fruits, like if I didn't buy non-organic jackfruit, I would not be eating jackfruit unless I lived in Florida and grew it, or knew somebody that grew it. So I have very few items I will eat that are non-organic, like mangoes, papayas, generally things that are on the clean 15 list.
Yeah, thick skin.
Thin skin that you don't eat, but any kind of greens, and then the other thing I don't want people to think about is like, oh, I can't get organic, so I'm not even going to do it. Like, conventional produce is still better than anything else in the grocery store. If you could afford organic, do it. I mean, I try to make organic affordable. I have videos on how to do this. Sam's Club, Costco, you could buy like carrots in bulk for super cheap, depending on where you live. They got spring mix there, but it doesn't have to be that expensive. So just buy as much organic as you could possibly afford or can find that's affordable in the year. And then get the conventional stuff if you have to. Of course, growing your own food is even better than organic, because organic standards, it says what you can and can't put on the produce, but it doesn't say what you should put on the produce to make high quality food. So I also want to dispel the myth that like all organic food is always the healthiest. No, what you grow yourself and you add nutrients in the soil and you pick right before you're going to eat it is the healthiest. And that should be the goal, not just buying organic.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, John. We're going to continue our conversation in the Teacher's Pet Corner. So if you're listening on podcast, just know that you can watch the entire or listen to the entire class today on BitChute, Odyssey, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you so much for coming on today and teaching us your journey so that we can be healthy. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian Mcdermott and John Kohler wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Good job. Hold on. Here.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian Mcdermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, so I'm looking at some of the comments. Let's talk about raw foods being hard on the digestive system. I know that my stomach traditionally has not been able to produce enough acid, and that's why I wasn't able to digest animal products. And so moving forward, I was put on acid blockers because I was misdiagnosed with acid reflux. And so now my stomach produces even less. So for people that have issues digesting, what is your advice for them?
So I would say this is that you can't just, all raw foods are hard to digest. It depends on the specific food, So for example, fruit is generally a lot easier to digest than say broccoli or cauliflower, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, stick with the foods that are easier to digest that are raw, and then some of the ones that are more complicated, then process them to make them easier to digest. So here's some examples. So for example, like broccoli, right? I rarely buy broccoli in the store because it's just like, it's so fibrous and tough, and like I really don't like it. But like I'm growing broccoli, and just the other day I was eating my fresh tender broccoli and cauliflower, and actually yesterday I picked fresh asparagus out of my garden, and I'm like, man, if people had fresh asparagus, like fresh, just picked, snapped off, super sweet, super tender, it doesn't have like plant rigor mortis, it isn't shipped from Mexico, 2 weeks old and like getting kind of bitter, like they'd love it. And the fibers are more tender when you grow it yourself and you snap it off and pick it than the old stuff they give you at the store, so they could be nice and big and sell you a big weight. But anyways, if you process these things, you can make it easier. So for example, that's why I love juicing, especially with things you can't digest, to get them in you. Broccoli and cauliflower, you could juice them to, remove some of the fiber so that you could digest it a lot easier, because what's happening is some people may not have enough hydrochloric acid, right? The only way you're going to get that is to make your body make more of that. And and it's like, how are you going to build muscles? You're not going to build muscles by just like not doing exercise. But if you're like lifting, heavy buckets of dirt like this, you're going to make muscles. But likewise, we need to give our intestines a workout and have there be a reason to make the hydrochloric acid. So like doing a green juice every morning before anything else, or even the medical medium says drink celery juice, or whether you want to make a green smoothie with a majority of greens and start out slow and don't like I seen John make 64 ounces and drink the whole thing. Don't do that. Make like 8 ounces, because you're not at the point where you're able to digest that. Make a little bit, or make a little bit of juice, see how you feel. And then, slowly over time, drink a little bit more. Some other ways to make greens easier to digest. I mean, of course, if you don't want to be raw, of course, put them in an Instant Pot and steam them. Super easy to digest. Things like cauliflower and broccoli also. But if you want to keep it raw, then a really good way to make it a little bit easier is if you take like greens and put it in a dehydrator at like 118 and let it run for like 2 hours. They'll get kind of soft and soggy, and it'll break down some of the fibers a little bit. And then you could eat those. It's a little bit easier to digest that way. Of course, also blending them up will basically make it easier to digest as well. So those are some of the tips that I'd say.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, blending versus juicing. Some people, there's a school of camp. I mean, this is, if you look at everything that is out there in the world, there's always a pro and there's a con, and there's people that are for and people that are against it. And some people say that when you juice, you eliminate the pulp and the pulp is good. And the people who juice say that the pulp is bad and it just goes straight through the cell. I mean, what is your, how much blending do you do versus juicing? What is your combination that you?
So my ratio, I'm a bit skewed, and maybe I need to skew the other way a little bit, but I do more juicing than blending. Absolutely. Once again, each one has its pros and cons. Like people say, here's the thing, like if you had to say, John, and I have videos on this already, like slow juicing versus standard Vitamix blending without a vacuum, I'd pick juicing every single time, because here's the reason why. Well, the Vitamix or a blender may keep the fiber, so you're selecting for nutrients however you process your food. I have videos on selecting for nutrients, whether you're going to juice or whether you're going to put stuff in an Instant Pot. And we have to just realize that we are selecting for certain properties in the food. So when you blend in a Vitamix, you are saying the fiber, or especially the insoluble fiber, is more important than the phytonutrients in the juice, right? Because when you blend, you oxidize the phytonutrients and the oxygen sensitive antioxidant vitamins in there, but you keep the fiber. You keep some of the fiber, but when you juice, you keep more of the polyphenols and phytonutrients. You remove some of the fiber, some of the insoluble fiber, but you keep the soluble fiber. And there's studies showing that when you drink juice, it'll enhance your microbiome. It'll modulate your microbiome, and make it even diverser than before they started the study. So that juice can still feed your microbiome. There's still some fiber in there, and fiber could once again be a hindrance to you. Yeah. Now, so that's why I would always choose juicing, because fiber's good. I'm not going to say don't eat fiber. I get a lot more fiber than most people, and removing a little bit out of my diet so I can have juice and get it more absorbable and get more greens into me and more vegetables in me, I think is a good thing. Of course, blending's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to clean up. But then I would say, if you are going to blend, vacuum blend. So now if I had to say vacuum blending versus slow juicing, what's better? I'm going to say vacuum blending is better, because now we're doing it without the oxidation damage. We're keeping some of the fiber if you choose to do that. But then if you want to remove the fiber, then you put it through an Alexa's nut milk bag. You could squeeze it out. I have videos on this also. So now the vacuum blender really allows you to do both. You could sometimes blend, keep all the fiber, sometimes remove some of the fiber that can hinder your digestion as well. So you could do both. So do both. And that's my final answer is vacuum blend and juice. They're both beneficial. I don't recommend blending now that I know about vacuum blending, but hey, non-vacuum blending is still better than drinking a Coke, a coffee, and eating a lot of processed vegan foods.
Correct. I totally 100% agree. Okay. So another thing, frozen versus fresh. What is your recommendation?
Sure. So, fresh, picked greens out of my garden versus frozen from the store. Hands down, my fresh stuff is going to win every single time. Now it gets more complex if you live in somewhere like like Puerto Rico, where there's not a lot of organic food, which really kind of sucked when I was there. Actually, Costco was the best place for organic food, and they had all the frozen organic stuff, and actually a fairly good selection of organic produce in Costco there. And most grocery stores in Puerto Rico didn't have organic stuff. So I'd say that if frozen food allows you to expand your diversity of the foods you're eating, foods that you wouldn't normally eat, then I'd say go for it. I would say that if you want to be a hardcore raw vegan, frozen vegetables have been blanched before they freeze them. So technically they're not really raw. I still eat them. I think they're perfectly healthy. The other thing that I see with frozen vegetables, a lot of the frozen vegetables can be from outside of the country, which then I'm a little bit concerned about all the shipping and transportation involved. And, even if it is certified organic, is it really organic? It's from Ecuador. I don't know. You just got to trust them, or organic from Mexico. And so
we can trust the FDA. We can trust the FDA.
Yeah. Well, so I'd say your own local food first, and I actually, you could freeze your own stuff. And if you freeze your own stuff that you grew yourself to eat in the off season, I'd say, that's great. That's probably better than frozen from the store. But like, I think the answer is, Lillian, it depends, like if you pick your own fresh berries from the farm and you eat them fresh versus like frozen berries that they say is frozen the same day, which I kind of wonder, is that really true? I mean, the studies could go either way. Like some berries, like raspberries, it's hard for me to buy in the store because they're just so unripe when you buy them. I mean, I grow my own raspberries, and when I pick them and I'm like, wow, these taste nothing like the ones at the store that I buy fresh because they degrade really quickly. So I'd say, here's the thing. If frozen vegetables or fruits gets you to eat more fruits or vegetables, do it.
Awesome. I like that.
So concerned if it's like, but try to do as much fresh as you can. But if you could fill in with frozen, organic frozen stuff, even conventional, if you can't get organic, do it. I mean, that's still way better than anything else you could eat.
Yeah, I've thrown some frozen broccoli in my strawberry smoothie. So I mean, it works because I don't have to put ice in it. So,
right.
Okay. So what about, for the person who asked about the digestion problems, there were a couple of tips that Dr. Furman has given in the classroom that has helped many of the people I know. And which is, if let's say if somebody has a reaction to onions or beans or anything like that, start with a little bit, chop the onions really, really tiny, and just take a little bit and increase that amount over time. And now I see people that just can have onions all the time and beans all the time. Our body that's, malfunctions. There's a malfunction because we are giving our body the wrong foods. What we think is food, the body is looking at as an intruder alert. This is a foreign chemical, and even the body doesn't recognize it. So when you start eating this way, your body can start relaxing and doing what it needs to do. And if you're reintroducing some foods, start with a little bit at a time. What would you say? Would that be a good idea?
I completely agree. And actually, there's a study that I looked up actually because everybody is also concerned about like things like oxalates and spinach and all this kind of stuff. And what I've really read through some of the science out there is like people in like Africa that eat like a lot of the different wild like greens, they have the bacteria in their guts that digest oxalates, the oxalate digesting bacteria. And there should be bacteria in our guts that digest all the plant foods that we would naturally eat. But the problem is if people are eating a standard American diet and animal foods and not these vegetables, they've lost that bacteria. So now we need to reintroduce that bacteria in us. And the best way to do that is to eat the food that the bacteria would appear on, because the bacteria is probably on the food in small quantities. And if you slowly increase that, maybe they're going to build up a colony in you so that you could digest it better. So
isn't it beautiful how our body was made? I mean, our bodies are so beautifully made. And if we just give it what it needs, it will respond kindly. What about sprouts? Because let's say broccoli sprouts, as opposed to eating broccoli, is there any benefit to either or?
I mean, do them all. I'm sprout deficient, I need to eat more sprouts and grow more sprouts. I would definitely say that I'm really good at gardening, but sprouts are just the extra thing that it's
too easy for you, right? Growing sprouts are too easy.
It's like, I travel so much, so it's hard to keep it going, when I'm doing this stuff, but it's on my to-do list. But I would say broccoli sprouts are probably more important and easier to grow for most people, especially if you don't have an outside. And you should be eating all the different kinds of sprouts on a regular basis. I mean, they're a lot higher in, well, actually, you don't even need to sprout them. You can just eat the seeds, actually. So for the isothiocyanates and the glucosinolates and all that good stuff, the broccoli seeds or the sprouts are very, very good. But also, as a plant matures more, there's different kinds of fibers in there. I mean, so I like to not like select plants at any certain age. I like to eat them at different stages because there's different nutrients in different stages, and also different parts of the plant people forget, we got leaves here.
What is that? What is that there?
Oh, this one right here is actually a tree collard. It's a tree collard dinosaur kale tree collard cross.
Wow.
It grows 365 days a year and grows like a little tree. If you see it, let me see if I can get a better angle on it. Oops.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, so it just grows like a little tree. And then this grows year round, whereas all the ones below it, these are just standard annuals. So like I got purple Brussels sprouts, purple kales. I got this really cool Casper kale. It's like this white, it's super sweet, like lettuce. This is like purple cauliflower. It's probably starting to grow in there. But
So beautiful.
But yeah, eat all different parts of the plant. So like the different kinds of, the leaves, the stem vegetables, even the root vegetables. I try not to differentiate between different parts of the plant. You could, you could eat onion roots. People don't know you could eat onion roots. Like if your green onions have the little roots, you could eat them. It's amazing. I was at a farm, they like dug up the onions and the guy's eating the roots. Like, here, taste the root. I'm like, you could eat that? And he's like, yeah.
You know what I do is I replant them.
Yeah, you can do that too.
And I get more greens. So it's amazing. That's one of my little hacks. It's like I live on the 5th floor, and if you go, I have 2 little vegetable gardens, like a little tall vegetable gardens, and they're just like really, really tiny now. And so I'm like, what do I do to make them grow faster? So I need for you to come over and breathe some life into my.
You need
my
some
little
lights.
garden.
I mean, that's why I like growing outside. I mean, lights are so important for the plants to photosynthesize. I mean, light is important for us to make vitamin D. I got my vitamin D checked, being in the winter. And then I went to Puerto Rico for the week, and then I got my vitamin D checked again. It was higher.
Wow. Good for you. Good for you. Okay. So I know I don't want to take up too much of your time. I really appreciate your coming into the classroom. And I hope this is the first of many that you join us to educate us. What would you say, final words of wisdom for people that are going to accept the Raw Vegan Challenge for 1 month? It's a 1 month. Don't get so crazy, because I accepted the challenge and I did it for 3 years, and it was great. It just, you get to that place where you want to try something different and new. And now I want to go back to my roots of the raw vegan roots and see how long I'll do this time, but I don't like labels. So what would you say would be your strongest advice for someone who's going to try this, whether it's the mindset, the spirit, or their body? What would you say to them for the 1 month and beyond?
I mean, probably the first thing I'd say is that you could do it. I mean, I've done it. I've successfully done it. It's not difficult. I think that, if you're given a cravings, every day, here's the thing, every day is a new day and a new opportunity. I mean, you don't have to even go every day. Every meal is a new opportunity. Hey, this meal I'm going to eat raw vegan, today, for breakfast, and then for lunch you could do it. Then for dinner you could do it. Just this one meal. You don't set it like I'm going to do it for 30 days. Like I would just set like one day at a time.
One meal at a time. Hey, that's how I finished a 7-year course 1 day at a time. I wasn't going to join in for the 7 years, but I did do it 1 day at a time. And 7 years later, I was complete. So, yeah.
And then the other thing I'd say is don't forget about the vegetables. It's really easy to eat a lot of raw fruits because it's just so easy, and fruits are convenient. I mean, I was traveling yesterday and I got a, vegetable juice and eating some bananas because they're so easy. But don't forget about the vegetables, whether you got to blend them up, even if you don't have a vacuum blender, or whether you got to juice them, make sure you get enough vegetable content in. I have like a ratio. It's like, like at least a 2-to-1 ratio, like for every 1 pound, or no, it's every 2 pounds of fruit, you want to do minimum 1 pound of vegetables, at least. I mean, I would recommend more than that.
2 pounds of fruit, minimum 1 pound of vegetables?
Let me see if that ratio is correct.
So you would think you would want 2 pounds of vegetables to 1 pound of fruit, right?
No, because you got to get enough. It depends. Like I'm talking minimum values, not
see.
Like optimal.
Okay.
Because like most people will eat a lot of fruit and just forget about the vegetables.
Got it.
And
what about nuts and seeds with a raw vegan diet?
I mean, I would just say like a handful or 2 a day, and a couple ounces. Like another mistake people make is they'll just start shoveling in nuts for their calories because it's very calorically dense, but now you're eating too many nuts and then at the expense of probably vegetables and then maybe some fruits. But on a raw vegan diet, most people are not going to do a vegetable-based diet like I do, which is kind of like extra credit, like advanced. So I'm going to say if you stick with a standard, more fruit-based, which is still way healthier than what you are eating or most people are eating. That's why you want to, have the vegetable to fruit ratio. Because if you try to eat too many vegetables and not enough fruit, you're going to end up under eating and then you're going to fail. So I don't want people to undereat and fail, but I don't want people to eat too many fruits and forget about the vegetables.
That's right. So remember your vegetables, start with your vegetables, and then complement with fruit. How about that? Does that sound good?
Yeah, start with your vegetables, eat your vegetables first, and then eat enough fruit so that you're not binging on nuts.
That's wonderful. And remember, you can find John Kohler in Go Raw, and there's other Okay Raw. I'm sorry, OKRaw.com, and then you can find him. Just Google his name.
Yeah, check out my Instagram. That's probably the best way to see what I'm up to and see what I'm eating.
What's your Instagram account?
Growing Your Greens.
Growing Your Greens. Go to Instagram and like and follow John, Growing Your Greens. Thank you so much, John, for being in the classroom today. You're an inspiration to a lot of people, so keep doing the great work that you're doing.
Thank you, Lillian.
Thank you. Okay, guys, we'll see you tomorrow. Dr. Lorraine Day is going to be in. We're going to talk a little bit more about going raw vegan or just going vegan, whatever it is you want to do. The Raw Vegan Challenge is going to start April 18th for 1 month. For 1 month, we're going to do that together, and we're going to have groups sessions together, and we're going to make this work. We're going to make this work because you are worth it. So we will see you tomorrow. Take care.